I think it's time to go.
From the hills and hollers of southern Indiana to the Lone Star State of Texas, we are the hunters of the paranormal. Truth seekers, mount up.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Ghostly Hunter with the Fort Worth Phantom. And go ahead, Fort Worth Phantom.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. Tonight on this show, what we're going to do is we're going to read over some cases of people that's been abducted in different UFO alien abduction cases, and we're going to talk about them, and hopefully these will be some stories that people haven't heard, and if you have heard them, then that's awesome too. If you've got any insight into it or anything, and you want to share anything with us after we do this show, leave us a message, or you can call our number. It's 812-974. Oh, let me see here. Hold on here. 0305 812-974-0305. If anybody's interested in being on the show, that's a number that you can reach us at. That's our there'll be a message on there that'll say recalling the encounters, but the actual name of our show is Hunters of the Paranormal, and I'll have to change the voicemail on it. But if you reach that number and you hear recalling the encounters, you're at the right place until we get that changed. This first case that we're going to talk about, it's the Cisco Grove attack, or it's basically the bizarre case of an alien robot attack of Cisco Grove. And this article was written by a guy by the name of Brent Swancer, and you can find this on mysteriousuniverse.org. I posted it on our paranormal Hunters of the Paranormal channel, which is on Telegram. And if anybody would like to join that channel, go in and send us a request, and we'll try to add you or invite you to our channel. The way that this, I'm going to go ahead and read this story. This is a story about a hunter that was attacked by some otherworldly creatures, and he lived to tell the tale, and thank goodness. And I'm just going to go ahead and get started and go ahead and read this. And then me and David, we're going to talk about some of the details of this story. And we're going to try to tie in the other stories that we're going to read tonight, and see if we can find anything that's any clues, like anything that is connected in these cases that, may shed some light on a few of the mysteries of this. Here we go. All right. This is okay. I'm going to read it. It says it started as a hunting trip with a couple of friends. On September 4th, 1964, 28-year-old Donald Shrum went on a bow hunting excursion to a place called Cisco Grove in the Placer County of California, along with a group of friends. They had gone out hunting in the area many times before, so there was at first no reason to suspect that this would be any different from any other trips. Yet there would be a series of events that would play out that would end in one of the most bizarre alien encounters on record. At some point during the day, Shrum apparently got so caught up in trying to track down deer that he became separated from the rest of the group. As night began to fall and the trees grew dark, he decided that it would be better to just hunker down for the night and catch up with the other hunters at the camp in morning, and so he took up a position up in a tree. As he sat up there listening to the sounds of the night and trying to find elusive sleep, his attention was suddenly drawn to a strange white light in the sky that seemed to be moving in a sort of zigzagging pattern and looked to descend below the tree line. As Shrum watched, it seemed as the object was bobbing along, approaching his position, and although he could not hear any noise, he assumed it was a helicopter. Curiosity got the better of him, and so he dismounted from his safe perch up in the tree to try and go to get a closer look. He suspected that it might be a search party out looking for him after he failed to return to camp, and so he launched a flare to let them know where he was, after which the light rapidly came right towards him, coming to within 50 feet and showing itself to be no normal helicopter. In fact, Shrum would describe it as a glowing cigar-shaped object that was immense, around 14 stories tall. From this object, a smaller one detached and supposedly came to rest not far away, which was enough to send Shrum scurrying back up into the trees for safety. He allegedly cowering there in the shadows in hiding for some time until he heard the sound of what sounded like people walking through the brush below. Yet when he peeked down, he could see that these were no normal people at all. Shrum would claim that he saw three entities, two of them humanoids, standing about 5 feet tall and wearing silver coveralls and goggles of some sort, while the third was a hulking robotic creature with glowing orange eyes. These entities approached the tree, and much to Shrum's horror, the robot began shaking it violently and with incredible strength in an apparent effort to get Shrum out of it. The terrified man hung on for dear life as these otherworldly beings continued their siege of his tree. And at some point during the ordeal, he claims that the robotic entity emitted some kind of white vapor from its mouth, which had a strange odor and caused him to black out. He woke up sometime later feeling nauseated and lethargic, but still up in his tree. Unfortunately, his aggressors were still there as well, and Shrum threw some lit matches and other items at them in a pathetic attempt to scare them off, before finally remembering his bow and using that to fire on them, hitting the robot 3 times to send sparks flying, but doing very little actual damage. In the end, Shrum's bow and arrow assault did not dissuade the outlandish beings, and indeed a second robot, much like the first, soon joined them. Once again, the robots released that toxic gas to render him unconscious, and once again he awoke feeling sick. Only this time the aliens had gotten bolder and were actually climbing up the tree. Shrum managed to pelt them with various objects he had on him, and they climbed back down to circle and shake the tree. This would go on all night until the coming of dawn, when they apparently sent nearly a dozen of those robotic things at him and caused him to black out once more with a voluminous cloud of that smoke. However, this time when he awoke, he was oddly hanging from a branch by his belt, and they were all gone, as if they had never been there at all. Wow. In the light of day, Shrum was able to make his way back to camp, where he learned one of his friends had also seen the UFO the previous night. Shrum would come forward with his bizarre tale and even talk to Air Force personnel about it, who were very eager to write it off as either fantasy or someone playing a prank on him. We are left to wonder what it really was he saw, what those creatures were, and perhaps most importantly, why they weren't able to get him out of that tree despite having vapor spewing robotic goons. One interesting point was made by the Iron Skeptic, who says, and he basically talks about how if they were so technologically advanced, why they couldn't get him out of the tree, which is a pretty good point, but it says here. So that's basically the encounter in a nutshell, but there are other details about it. Me and David have been listening to the guys that wrote a book about it, and they talk about how he lit like a lot of stuff on fire, like some of his clothing and stuff like that, in an attempt to get him away from the tree, throwing fire stuff that he had lit on fire at him. What other details you want to add to it, David? Is there anything you want to add to it?
I'm just blown away by the whole thing. I can't imagine the pure terror that this man went through, and had to be a long night, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Had to be a long night, and it also makes me wonder if they already knew this, it almost makes me wonder if they already knew this gentleman was separated from his friends. It's just something I'm wondering. But that's something we'll never know.
Right. I don't know if you heard him say in there that this area is in around the Lake Tahoe area, and it's
Yes.
close to Sacramento.
Sacramento, yes.
And I take it that's close to the Nevada border, and we all know what is in Nevada. Area 51.
Good point.
So is
yep.
that something that came out of Area 51, and maybe they were hunting, or given permission that they can hunt for humans, maybe? And this on this particular night they got lucky.
Good point.
Or maybe there was more to it. Maybe somebody was watching and knew they were in there. I take it when the three men, him and his buddies, there was three of them. One of them got on one ridge, another one got down the bottom of the valley, and then there was another ridge on over, and his other buddy got on it. So what they were going to do is they were going to walk and follow the ridges all the way down, and then they figured that the ridges would meet so that he would be able to cross over with his buddy, and then they could all head back to camp. But when he got to the end of it, this particular ridge, it just was a sheer face drop off, and he couldn't get down off of it. But I would have thought I would have turned around and came back. I went back the way I came and stayed on that ridge. And unless he didn't have it sounded to me like he didn't have a flashlight, because he lit fires, like signal fires and stuff, which sounds like you should have been a little more prepared. But
yeah, it's scary enough just being left alone in the woods, let alone being messed with by robot humanoid creatures. Mm-hmm. Had to be terrifying.
What I thought was interesting about it was how when the mothership came in, it went above him and kind of circled around a little bit, and then it released a smaller craft, and then the smaller craft came out and went down into the canyon below or whatever, and then up on top of ridge, and then that's where the being started coming towards him. He watched them actually walk through the woods. And the ones, the robotic things, I take it had like their eyes lit up like had a glow to them. And I take it at one point when they released the gas out of its mouth, he could see the features of this robotic, whatever this thing was. It was like it's wearing an exoskeleton type thing, but the jaw had like a hinge. It looked like it had a hinge on it, and it was like a wider mouth. And then he describes the other beings that are with it, like having like astronaut type, billowy astronaut suits on. Yes, with dark goggles. I don't think I've ever heard any aliens described quite like that. Have you, David?
I have not. No, sir.
And the thing of it is that he said they had goggles. They were wearing goggles, and these things were like 4 to 5 feet tall. He said he estimated. Could you imagine? That would really be scary. He must have been
yes,
in some pretty rough terrain to tie yourself up in a tree, like try to hook in the belt and sleep in a tree. I tell you, that'd be uncomfortable. I've been up in trees. I've deer hunted out of trees just sitting on limbs, and it isn't very comfortable
at all. Right.
Yeah. So I don't think I don't go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off. You know more about this. I'm still learning on this case. You said one of the buddies actually saw the craft too on a separate occasion or the same time?
The same time. They saw it, but he saw it.
But not the creatures.
No, he didn't see the creatures, but he saw the craft from about 2 miles away. So I don't know what kind of perspective he had or what size the craft looked like to him. But if it was, what they say, 14 stories tall, I mean, that would be the equivalent of the length of it, I take it. Because it said if it was laying, if a 14-story tall building was laying on its side, that would be the equivalent of what this craft looked like.
It's a big one.
Oh man. And they said it was quiet. And then at first, when he saw that light, the light that came to him, he thought it was a helicopter. But when he got up to him, it was just a light that was on the nose of the craft. And one of the things that I'm suspicious about is why do UFOs have to have light? You know what I mean? Why would they have light on board? I mean, you would think if they were all secretive and hidden and this and that, you wouldn't think that they would have light. Right, no lights at all. So that kind of like when I see lights at night in the sky, unless they're super unusual and you can tell that they've got different flight characteristics, like, you know, when they're combining together, like the ones that I saw, they were combining together, and then they was, you know, like one object would turn into two, and then they would like the light would go out, and then one would appear to the left, and then I don't know, but it was it's interesting. It's an interesting case, that's for sure.
It sure is. I can't wait to check that other video out. The rest of it, I got like 20 minutes left on it, and this one kind of reminds me a lot of the one on Unsolved Mysteries with the guys fishing too. I don't know why.
Is it
I guess
is it the Allagash?
The alligator with their kind of robotic looking heads as well,
Yes,
and they were gold suits. Yes.
that's interesting. They
it makes me wonder too. I'm sorry, Lee. It just makes me wonder
that's
too
okay.
with these. Why are these things in suits? Is it because you know, they can't handle our environment and they need their own suits, or is it maybe, just maybe, they weren't aliens and they were human? I don't know. That's just something I was thinking
On that on the video where he's talking about it, and the actual guy that had this happen to him, they alluded to the fact that he thought that whatever these beings were, these creatures or whatever they were being controlled by something that was actually in the craft. Now, here's my question: are these actual like biological beings? Like, you know, they call them EBENs, extraterrestrial biological entities, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are these actually biological entities, or are these things? Now, what I'm going to say here is like, are they like a drone? And when I say drone, I'm kind of referring to like a flying drone where a person is controlling it and, you know, going where they want to go with it. Could there possibly be these entities be a form of a drone that someone's wearing an exoskeleton and using virtual reality to move around in a 3-dimensional environment to, you see what I'm saying?
That's very interesting.
That's my thoughts. But, you know, if there were more than one of them, that, I don't know. We don't know what kind of sophisticated, you know, technology that they have. One of the things that I thought about it also was, you know, how I had mentioned to you once before, like the more technology you get, the weaker that you get.
Mm-hmm.
These things were only like 4 feet tall, and they were having trouble getting up the tree to get him. And, you know, that kind of lends a little credibility to the more technology that you get, the weaker that you get. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's like these things are sent out to do the dirty work of something else that stays in the craft that wouldn't survive if they came down, if that makes sense. That whatever it is stays hidden in the crafts and sends these things out. That's what I think, anyway.
Did the gas come out of the one? Did the gas come out of the one that looked like in the suits, or the one with the glowing eyes?
The one with the glowing eyes that was like the robotic.
Okay, I thought so.
He referred to him as robotic, and the gas, I take it, he said came out of the mouth where the hinge jaw was.
Wow.
So, yeah, they actually recovered. I take it they recovered his arrows, and the arrows had some kind of a metal on it. I mean, I'm not sure what the results of the test were, if they even had them tested. That would be interesting to find out. We'll have to do some more research on that and figure out if there's anything to that. But he knocked him down. He knocked him backwards, you know, shooting with the bow. I guess he was using a 60-pound recurve stick bow. And the guy makes a reference to a compound in the audio radio show that we listened to, but I don't think that he meant, the first guy said it was a recurve, and I think he got confused in the story and said compound. Mm-hmm. But like back in those days in the 60s, that's all there was compound bows. I remember when I was a little kid, that's what I started out with, and that's what my parents had, my mom, dad, and uncles, they all bow hunted at one time. So I'm a little familiar with that. But that bow saved him from falling out of that tree a time or two. He had it across his legs, I take it, and when they had knocked him out with that gas, he leaned over the bow and it caught all his weight and it saved him.
Wow.
But, so, what do you think about this, David? What do you think? What do you think about all of this?
I'm blown away by it all, actually, and still want to learn more, like you said, on the what could be on the tips of the arrowheads. And was there a police report made, and did they keep it quiet? Or do you know what
Um,
happened after that?
I'm not sure about the police report. It'd be interesting to find out if there was a police report done on it. But
Mhm.
I believe if you will listen to the audio, I didn't get to listen to the rest of it, but I'd listened to it once before, and I believe that the Air Force people, they tried to just like, basically make it sound like he was crazy, like it was somebody else that was doing it. Basically, like I think they were like blaming it on Boy Scouts that were playing a prank on him and
Oh
this and
wow.
that. And then I guess he found his arrows and everything, but I guess they went back up there to look at the scene where everything had happened, and it was like somebody had come up there with a rake and like went through everything and raked the ground back and like cleaned everything up where that
Oh,
had
well, there you
happened.
go.
And he said they left footprints, and when they went back up there and looked, there were footprints that looked like their feet, whatever these creatures were, that like their feet had been wrapped in some type of a cloth, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, if they were
That's
just Boy Scouts, then why go rake all that up? It's not
good.
doesn't add
Yeah,
up.
good question. The metallic robot things that's uh that's kind of creepy, man. Like they sent in the big boys to come to try to get him out of the tree, and those things could shake the tree violently. It depending on what size the tree was. That'd be pretty scary,
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
like the ones in the astronaut suit, it was like they came in and like secured the area, and then they brought these things in to come and recover him. But that was another thing that they talked about, how the creatures in the suits, or these beings that were in the suit, as they were making their way to him, were snapping off branches, and they were looking at the leaves on them, and they was investigating the like the environment, like they were taking samples of the environment and this and that. And I guess when they went back to the site where this had happened, he had thrown coins at them, like whatever change that he had in his pocket, he threw coins down on the ground, and that was the only thing they took was the coins.
Wow.
Which coins would say a lot about a civilization if they,
Sure would.
if they were curious, if they even knew what they were.
Okay, so
Um,
this is the one you were telling me about. I'm looking at the picture. This is the one you were telling me about that had the hand like a drill bit.
okay, this is
No?
the next case. That's the next case that we're gonna
Oh,
cover.
okay. I'm sorry, y'all. My bad.
Oh, that's okay. Um,
Look, I was just looking at the picture there, and the one that's on the left, it looked kind of pointed, so that was my fault.
oh, that's all right. Um, are you looking at the picture that I have up on the screen right now?
Just that had to be, like you said, it had to be terrifying and very uncomfortable, man. I can't imagine a whole night of terror like that. That's just poor guy,
Oh
man.
yeah. This next case that we're gonna cover. This is another hunter, and his name is Carl Higdon. You all right if I go on ahead and start with this one,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
David? All right. Okay, this one, the way this one reads, it says, and this was an article that is by UFO Insight. Let's see, UFOinsight.com, and I also posted the link to that. And I'm trying to find, let's see here, who wrote this article. I think it's usually towards the end here. Let's see. Marcus Loth is the writer of this. Marcus Loth, and he works for UFOinsight.com, it looks like. And this is a pretty lengthy article, so I probably better get started reading this one. This one happened. the Shrum case of Cisco Grove happened in 1964, and this that was in September of 1964. But this case, this is in Wyoming, and this case is in October of 1974. So here we go. It's basically 10 years later,
10 years
month
later, yeah.
later. Okay, this says in October of 1974, with another harsh Wyoming winter on the way, and with food prices rising higher than most Americans could afford, 41-year-old Carl Higdon prepared to venture out into the woodlands and wilderness in an attempt to hunt down a large chunk of his family's meat supply for the following few months. He had done so several times before, but with ample space still in the freezer, which had to feed himself, his wife, and 4 children, he ventured out again. On this particular hunting mission, however, things would take a bizarre and otherworldly turn. Higdon's account is one of the most fascinating on record. Give me just a second here, David. I'm going to put up the. Let's see here. I'm going to put up this article here. Let's see. Okay, never mind. Okay, I'm just keep on reading. Higdon's account is one of the most fascinating on record, and one that offers some physical evidence of, at the very least, a strange incident occurring. Furthermore, it is another case that offers details that are found in seemingly unconnected encounters, both across distance and time. Indeed, if there is any truth at all in the account of Carl Higdon, and all indications are that the incident is genuine, then it might offer us some clues as to why the UFO phenomenon exists and why it is so persistent. An unexpected afternoon's hunting. As the 25th of October began, Carl Higdon was not actually planning to go hunting, at least not initially. He was preparing to go to work as normal when he received a phone call from one of his crew before the afternoon shift. He was sick and wouldn't be into work. Higdon, reasoning that he wouldn't be able to get anything done without his sick crew member, took the day off also. With the afternoon free, he decided to venture out into the Wyoming countryside looking to hunt elk. He would set out to Carbon County and to McCarthy Canyon with his truck packed up for the afternoon. However, along the way, he encountered some fellow hunters who appeared to have trouble with their vehicle. He pulled over to assist the pair and consequently began talking with them. They would inform him of a place deep in the Medicine Bow National Forest where there were much more elk and where the hunting was much better. It was a remote, little-known spot, but due to his kindness, the stranded hunters were happy to divulge the information to Higdon. Following his getting their vehicle started, he set off again. However, this time, he changed his destination. He would now head to the Medicine Bow National Forest instead. It wasn't too far out. He reasoned he was around 40 miles from his hometown of Rawlings. By the time he arrived at his destination, it was late afternoon, just short of 4 p.m. There was still light, but it was about to go into decline. He actually probably got there about the right time, because that's about the time to head out to hunt. Sorry, that's my observation there. The bullet floated like a butterfly. Upon exiting his truck and preparing his hunting gear, Higdon would spot another fellow hunter, his friend Gary Eaton. The pair spoke for a few minutes before Gary informed him he was going higher into the forest than Higdon, but that he might scare down some elk for him. As his friend went on his way, Higdon made his way to the location the stranded hunters had informed him about. As he did, he came across a concealed area behind a hill. It was shortly after entering the area that a sudden burst of movement out of the corner of his eye caught his attention. He focused on his surroundings and spotted a small herd of elk. He was above the elk, 5 of them in total. With his hunting rifle raised, he took aim at one of the animals and fired. However, not only did the kickback from the gun not happen, there was no sound whatsoever. At that same time, Higdon had the end of the rifle in his sights and claims to have witnessed the bullet leave the barrel and travel through the air so slowly it floated like a butterfly. It would eventually drop to the ground about 50 feet in front of him. He suddenly became aware of a painful silence all around him. We've heard of that silence before, haven't we, David?
Yes,
Not a
absolutely.
sound came from anywhere or anything. Higdon could sense a feeling of static electricity that you often get before a fierce thunderstorm. Coming to his senses a little, he stepped forward to retrieve the fallen 7mm bullet. He noticed that the lead part was no longer in the bullet, which itself or the casing of it was misshapen considerably. Suddenly, a twig snapped somewhere nearby. Higdon would spin around immediately, seeing the figure in front of him. Thinking it was a fellow hunter, he lowered his gun quickly. As the strange figure emerged from the shadows of the trees, however, he realized something was terribly wrong. The figure was most definitely humanoid and male, but it wasn't human. Higdon would later recall the figure had no detectable ears, with very small eyes and no eyebrows. He also recalled that his hair was coarse, like straw growing out of his head. It had a slit-like mouth that exposed 3 extremely large human-like teeth. Perhaps most bizarre were the antenna-like objects on each side of its forehead. Higdon would add no chin was visible. His face just seemed to blend right into his throat. He had no jawbone. He would estimate the mystery male creature to be around 6 foot in height and adorned a one-piece, tight-fitting black suit similar to a wetsuit scuba divers wear. On the chest were harnesses that crisscrossed each other. The figure also wore a metallic belt with a 6-pointed yellow star where the buckle should have been. Already unnerved and bordering on panic, when Higdon noticed the creature's right arm, it was all he could do to prevent absolute terror from gripping him. Where the hand should have been was a drill-like device attached or blended onto the wrist. He looked at the left arm, noticing that there was nothing at all on the end of the blunt limb. The creature moved forward, directly approaching Higdon, bracing himself for the worst. It was a disorienting surprise when the creature asked matter-of-factly, "How you doing?" Already struggling to keep his composure and process what was happening, when the strange creature asked Higdon if he was hungry, it simply threw him even more. Before he could answer the question, a clear package levitated toward him, seemingly at the commands of the strange visitor. Higdon reached for it. He opened the cellophane-like package, revealing 4 pills inside. The creature told Higdon that one of them would last him 4 days, and he should take one now. Without questioning, Higdon reached for one of the pills, placed it in his mouth, and swallowed it. He then placed the package into his pocket. The creature said his name was also One. As he moved, Higdon became aware a transparent cube-shaped object on the ground behind the figure. He would estimate it to have been around 5 feet high and wide, and around 7 feet tall. Although he was not told so, Higdon somehow realized this was the strange figure's ship. As if reading his mind, the creature asked him, "Do you want to come along?" Although he didn't specifically answer yes, he must have gestured as much. The next thing he knew, he was inside the cube. Next to him was also One. Struggling to understand how they could both fit inside such a small object, Higdon looked around in awe, but still with a persistent panic bubbling away inside of him. When he noticed the 5 elk were also in the cube with them, his own memories and senses began to become fuzzy. He would recall, though, that they were motionless or paralyzed. It was then he realized he was sat in a chair with bands holding his arms down firmly. So he could feel the craft lifting off the ground. He also noticed another of the creatures enter the room. It approached him, fitting a bizarre helmet-like object to his head. The underside of the craft was clear, and beneath him, Higdon could see a planet-shaped object similar to a basketball. It was a planet, but it wasn't Earth or any other planet he knew. They would enter this mysterious world, and although Higdon's memories of it are hazy at best, What he does recall is fascinating. Most prominent in his mind was a megalithic tower that dwarfed all around it. He would recall that all around the tower were revolving patterns of multicolored lights. The lights were so intense that Higdon couldn't keep his eye open to look at them. Apparently unaffected by their guests' discomfort, the figures brought the craft to land at the base of the tower. Higdon could see the alien world through the transparent walls of the craft. He was amazed. Then, that in front of him, outside the craft, were several humans talking to each other, just as they would on Earth. He claimed there were two young girls, one around 11 years old and one in her early teens, a teen couple around 18 years of age, and an older man in his 50s. As he watched this scene outside the ship, his host approached him once more. They were, he claimed, on a planet 163,000 light year miles from Earth. Higdon questioned if the creature had meant light years, to which he replied, the passage of time is different for them. Also, one then motioned that they should go, and Higdon was led inside the behemoth I can't say the word, behemothic tower, big tower. Okay. Evidence. Okay. He was taken into an elevator, which took them to a room with a platform in the center of it. He was told to stand on the platform. As he moved, he noticed he was not walking but floating. Although he didn't understand how, upon stepping on to the raised platform, a glassy shield appeared from out of the wall. It stopped in front of Higdon, apparently performing some kind of scan on him. After 5 minutes or so, the shield retracted away from him and back into the wall. Then his host informed him rather bluntly that he was to be taken back to Earth, where they had found him, as he did not suit their purpose. What is extremely interesting about this detail is just short of a decade later, an elderly gentleman in England named Alfred Berthoud would receive almost the exact same response to a similar examination on a landed UFO. It is highly unlikely that Berthoud was aware of Higdon's encounter and perhaps endorses what Higdon believes. The purpose was a breeding program. Before he knew it, he was back inside the cube with no real memory of how he had arrived there. He did recall, however, of Osso One admiring his primitive weapon before handing him back his rifle. He also, rather bizarrely perhaps, remembers his lost host informing him that their home planet had no fish in their seas, which was one of the things about Earth that their people most liked. As they prepared to take off, the creature took back the pills, as Higdon would now no longer need them. This was his last memory of the cosmic encounter before he found himself back on Earth. Disoriented and on the verge of mentally breaking down, Higdon didn't question how his truck seemingly had been moved several miles from where he had parked it to the spot where he had encountered the humanoid creature. When the creature stated to him, "We'll see you," he realized he was floating slightly above the ground. The next thing he knew, the craft was gone, and he was standing on the edge of a rocky cliff edge. Although the drop was only 10 feet or so, he was not prepared for it. When he landed on the ground below, if he would have landed on the ground below, he would sustain considerable injuries. Perhaps he also suffered a concussion in the fall, as his next memory is of struggling along a dirt road, unable to remember what happened or where he was. He eventually relocated his vehicle, although due to his shredded memory, he didn't realize it was his truck. He was simply using it to take shelter. When a voice came over the CB radio, he quickly picked up the receiver and asked for help. Unsure of his location, he would recall a sign that stated he was at the North Boundary National Forest. A search party would eventually locate him just before midnight. When they did, they were at a loss as to how he had managed to drive the truck there. Furthermore, there were no fire track or tire tracks anywhere nearby. Despite the muddy ground, and just to add another twist to the whole encounter, as the search party was looking for Higdon, they would encounter strange green, red, and white flashing lights in the skies overhead. Higdon's wife had joined the search effort. However, Higdon at first failed to recognize his wife. When he finally did respond to the search party, he exclaimed wildly, "They took my elk." Higdon would eventually go with his wife to a patrol car and was taken to the nearest hospital. The rest of the search unit, with great difficulty, eventually managed to remove his truck from its mysterious location. As well as the injury sustained in the fall, doctors would notice how bloodshot his eyes were. Further tests would reveal more intriguing results, though his blood, for example, appeared to be enriched with nutrients and vitamins, more so than the average person. Even stranger, scarring on his lungs from exposure to tuberculosis had seemingly disappeared. In short, as Dr. Tongo, who examined him, would state, he's now in A1 super condition. It's hard to imagine that the transformation isn't connected to the encounter. It was the following day when Higdon began to remember the encounter in full. With his consent to do so, the authorities would inform the press of the incident. This, in turn, would attract members of the UFO community, researchers, and enthusiasts to seek out Higdon to hear the mind-bending events. One of those who took an interest in Higdon's case was Leo Sprinkle, who was adept at using hypnotic regression to unlock memories of such encounters. Although much of what occurred was already known to Hickman, the session in early November 1974 did manage to reveal some interesting aspects of the incident, and quite possibly offers us an insight into why such visitations are happening. According to Higdon, the visitations to Earth is essentially food gathering missions. Many of the animals and fish on Earth do not exist anywhere else in the universe. Groups of such animals, such as elk on this occasion, go to their home world for breeding purposes. He also stated again that humans who go to this alien world are there for similar reasons. However, no further information came to mind regarding the particulars or details of the program. Higdon did state, however, that he believed the reason he did not suit their purpose was due to him having a vasectomy several years previously. Incidentally, Sprinkle, who would find in his evaluation that Higdon is reporting sincerely the events he experienced, aside from the bizarrely crumpled bullet that he retained, it is impossible to explain the vanishing of the lung scars that are on his medical record. And then there is the impossible location of his truck that the search party never could explain how it came to such an inaccessible spot. Several years later, in 1978, Higdon underwent a polygraph test. He passed it unquestionably, with the report stating something utterly fantastic happened in this man's life. The test proves it beyond a doubt. So there's that.
Wow.
That is the let's see, what's the name? It is A Bizarre Humanoid Encounter of Carl Higdon. That was the name of it. And then, like I said, it's on www.ufoinsight.com. And you can go there and check on it. And the way that you spell AUSSO one is AUSSO, and it's one, like zero or ONE.
Okay.
Because I was spelling it a different way. And I couldn't find it because I remembered the name of it, but I forgot how to spell it. But
pretty fascinating stuff there.
Oh man, like how like they returned him and it was on the edge of a cliff, and if he would have fell, he would have had like major injuries off the cliff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How many missing 411 people has that happened to?
Hey. Hey, you just took the words out of my mouth. I was going to bring that up to everybody else. What does this kind of remind you of? And that's it. Is the missing 411.
Mm-hmm.
This one's still terrifying, but they sounded a little friendlier, almost like more convincing to get people on board.
Another
with the medicine and stuff, like to
Mm-hmm.
Hey, being friendly with you want something to eat and all that, for the long trip back.
Yeah, that is this possibly part of the secret space program that we don't know about? Like, is this are they coming back here to gather food? They know where to come to. They know where to get the food. And are these creatures actually? Could these be biological entities that they've created that have a specific job to come to the planet to harvest these things?
Good point.
That's a question.
A good point.
It
I think
man,
so.
it's also one. Yeah, it's spelled AUSSOONE. Also one. And
And you said the gentleman had scars. He had surgery scars that were completely gone after this.
tuberculosis scars in his lungs, and they were gone.
That
And
makes
he,
that makes me think of a very good friend of ours, Mr. Antonio. He had he'll be coming on our show in the future to talk about it. But he had um, some things happen to him, and a couple of his moles were completely gone afterwards.
wow,
Yeah, it just made
it
me think of that.
makes you wonder.
Hmm.
Wow,
Absolutely.
the cube type ship thing was interesting. Was that cube maybe not necessarily a ship as much as it was a portal? You know what I'm saying? Or maybe was it a mix of a ship and a portal? you
Yeah,
know?
there's so much going on. I'm sure there's so much going on in this gentleman's mind. You wouldn't even think about it.
Right.
Not to mention, there's just so much that we don't know. It's
It
amazing.
said in there that he had seen little kids and like 18-year-old couple and this and
And
that.
people, yeah.
People, humans. It
Hmm.
would have been interesting if he could have made a conversation with them or could have spoken to them. Or I was hoping that's where that was going to lead to, that he had actually gotten to speak with them. 163,000 light years away, but then he didn't call it light years, so he called it miles, and he said like time basically is different in there to them than it is to us, which makes you wonder what really is time.
Absolutely. And
I thought it was
they took his elk. That is very
yeah,
that is that is just so bizarre. An ocean with no life in it. It's
hmm
it's it's out there.
that is wild.
Makes me wonder if they were trying to get some kind of breeding going with that, even though the elk were already gone. But
Oh yeah.
just makes me wonder, man. I love this kind of stuff. This is interesting.
Oh, I do too. um let's go on ahead, David, and we'll go and cover the Pascagoula incident, and then we'll after we're done with that, then we'll try to compare notes and talk about all three of them. Would that be all right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. This next case is from 1973, and it's from Pascagoula, Mississippi. My uncle actually lived in Pascagoula, and he worked at a shipyard down there. And I just wonder if he knows this Calvin Parker guy. That'd be interesting for me to ask. I'll ask him the next time I get to talk to him. This comes from what's called UFOcasebook.com. And let's see here. It doesn't really give the author's name here. It just says it's just an article from UFOcasebook.com. All right, here we go. This happened in 1973. It was a strange case of a 19-year-old Calvin Parker and 42-year-old Charles Hickson actually began a day before their famous encounter. On October 10th, 1973, 15 different people, including 2 policemen, reported seeing a large silver UFO slowly fly over a housing project in St. Tammany Parish, New Orleans, Louisiana. Only a scant 24 hours later, Hickson and Parker would have the scare of their lives, a frightening encounter with an eerie UFO. The 2 men were both from the town of, I'm going to mess this up, Gautier, Mississippi, and were doing some fishing in the Pascagoula River on a dark night about 9 p.m. They suddenly heard a type of buzzing behind them. Both men turned around to see the source of the sound and were amazed to see a glowing egg-shaped object with bluish light on its front side. The unusual craft was hovering just a few feet above the ground and about 30 feet from the shore of the river. To their unbelief, a door opened in the object and three strange beings began to float just above the water straight toward them. Though the beings had legs, they did not use them. They simply floated across the river. Parker and Hickson would later describe the beings as about 5 feet tall, had bullet-shaped heads without necks, slits for mouths, and where their noses or ears would be, they had thin conical objects sticking out like carrots from a snowman's head. They had no eyes, gray wrinkled skin, round feet, and claw-like hands. Hickson, frozen in fear and unbelief, was grabbed by two of these creatures, and the third one took Parker, who fainted from fright. Hickson would later relate that when the beings put their arms under his body to support him, he felt numb all over. He was then floated into a brightly lit room inside the UFO. Inside this room, he floated along with an eye-like device which examined him all over. After his ordeal, Hickson was left floating while the beings left the room, probably to examine Parker. Approximately 20 minutes after the ordeal had begun, it was over, and Hickson was floated back outside of the strange craft. Parker was crying and praying on the ground. Only a moment or two later, the craft rose straight up into the air and disappeared. As the two men began to regain their composure, they were uncertain as to what they should do. Reluctant to report their harrowing experiences, they felt obligated to tell someone. Despite fearing ridicule, they telephoned Kessler Air Force Base in Biloxi. Kessler referred their problem to the local sheriff's office. Afraid of what reaction they might get from law enforcement, they opted instead to drive to their local newspaper. Finding the office closed, they decided to take their bizarre story to the sheriff after all. Naturally, the sheriff felt the two men's story was some kind of a hoax, and to get the truth, he put Hickson and Parker into a room which was wired for sound, hoping that they would slip up and reveal they were perpetrating a strange tale. Soon news of the event began to surface. The local press released the story that quickly followed by the wire services. Within a few days, Pascagoula incident was major news all over the USA. The Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, APRO, sent University of California professor James Harder to investigate Dr. J. Allen Hynek, representing the Air Force, who arrived to look into the story. Harder and Hynek interviewed Hickson and Parker together. Harder hypnotized Hickson, but he became so frightened that the session had to be aborted. The two abductees were encouraged to take a lie detector test, which they both passed. Harder and Hynek, both highly respected in their professions, believed the two men's story. As at a later date, Hynek stated there was definitely something here that was not terrestrial. In what may be a related incident, a couple of weeks after this chilling account, Coast Guardsmen and fishermen had an encounter with an underwater metallic object. This strange object had an amber light on it, and the guard chased it in the Pascagoula River. The object was close enough to touch, but each time it was prodded with a large boat hook, it would turn off its light, move a distance away, and turn its light back on. This unusual encounter lasted about 40 minutes before the craft disappeared. The Pascagoula encounter is one of the most unusual accounts of all UFO reports. Though the sightings and abduction involved only two witnesses, there were several other sightings of unusual flying objects on the same night. The two men have held to their story, though no earthly explanation has been offered for their strange events of the night of October 11th, 1973. So there you go. That's 3 accounts of people being
Ooh.
abducted by strange creatures with
That's another
different
creepy
features.
one.
Oh man, could you imagine being fit? Well, you were fishing and something like that come down, and you're just trying to have a good time, and wow, end
Yep.
up in sheer terror, man.
I remember
Wow.
this one. I remember this one on the Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, how many of these people in the missing 411 have encountered these things and not come back to tell the tale.
Exactly. It's scary to think about, right?
Oh yeah, that's
If I'm not mistakenly, if I'm not mistaken, is this the one that they the guy got the flashlight out and signaled towards the craft, and that's when it kind of took a turn and came back?
I think that's the Allagash. Uh,
Oh, okay.
that's the one, because I think these guys were from some of the things that I've watched, and I actually listened to I think it was Calvin Parker. He told the account. You can find it on YouTube if you type in Calvin Parker UFO abduction. He described how where they parked at to fish, they had to walk through like I don't know if it was trash or junk or whatever to get back to this place where they were at, but it was like no trespassing. So at first, when they saw the blue light on the thing, they thought it was the
Okay.
police coming in
Okay.
on
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, I got
So
this one. I got this one confused with another one. I'm
that's
sorry.
why they kind of froze, because they thought maybe it was the police coming in on them. And
Yes. Okay, this is the
then
one where they were bait fishing, right? Okay, my bad.
yeah, um, how terrifying that would be. And like all 3 accounts, the beings, like the hands are different. They're just they're almost like it's almost the same scenario, but it's different descriptions of beings. If that makes
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah, it does. That's a good point there.
And the hands, like the one had missing hand, and then a drill bit looking hand, and then I take it the one this Pascagoula incident, the aliens look like they or these things that come out of the craft had claw like hands appendages on them, and
Hmm.
they actually examined those 2 guys, these guys that and it tells it in there that they were examined. But the one I believe this is the one where it was like a female looking alien came in and it stuck its finger down one of their throats, and I thought that was weird. That was a weird. Why would they stick their finger down your throat? You know, unless they were putting something down in there. This is all of these tales, these 3 stories, although they're not in close proximity of one another, they they all have a lot of similarities to them. Like is this a breeding program? Is this a food gathering mission? Are they using us for food? Is that part of the breeding program? They breed them on those other planets and use them for food, humans for food. I heard they trade. I actually heard that they trade humans in space for slavery and for food. Have you heard that before?
I have not. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can
Okay.
still hear you.
Okay. My headphones just killed out on me, but I can still hear you. I wanted to make sure I was still here.
Yeah, you're still here. All right. If anybody has any thing that they would like to add to any of these stories, like I said, you can call our number. It's 812-974-0305 and leave a message. Or we also have a group on Telegram called Hunters of the Paranormal. You can find us there and leave a message. Let me see here on here. I'll tell you about
To
the.
you guys, if anyone wants to reach out. They can find me at David from Texas on Facebook Messenger and go that way as well. We'd love to
I'm
hear
glad you
from
put
you
that
that
out
way
there,
too.
David. Yes,
Yes.
I'm glad you put that out there like that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Anything at
um,
all about anything.
you had a UFO sighting in. Did you say it was Steubenville, Texas, David?
Yes, we had an infamous one here in Stephenville, about an hour south of here, from here in Fort Worth.
Stevensville.
Yes.
Okay. Did you said you had a buddy that saw something, didn't you?
Yes, he saw one here in Fort Worth go right over his house. That he said it was a black boomerang blimp looking. He said it was blimp. I said, "Why do you think it was blimp looking?" He said, "Because of the way it was slow and moving." But just makes me
Well,
wonder.
that
But he said it was all black, like jet black, and no lights on it. And as it was going over, he said it sounded like a subwoofer, like the humming of a subwoofer going over. And as it went towards the Carswell Air Force Base, the sound went away, and then that's the direction that it went is at that Air Force Base, and he lost sight of it. Then that's kind of interesting. Going in that direction makes me wonder, what kind of government, crafts and stuff they have working on there. Who knows?
I found a UFO database that told a lot of sightings and different things. And over here where we live at, there's an Air Force base. And there were some people here that wrote a report. I guess there were numerous cars they pulled off the side of the road to witness this thing, but it was almost like you're describing, like a black boomerang shaped craft, and it was hovering in a field, almost looked like it was trying to land or whatever, but it would have been on the backside of this Air Force base over here. And I often wondered, were they testing it out and taking it and, like brought it out and landed it and then was going to take it back and see if they could be undetected. My wife actually saw a cloaked UFO, and one of her coworkers um, saw it at the same time, and they compared notes on what they saw, and it was identical. But it decloaked, and it was right on the backside of the airbase here, and it decloaked, and then it cloaked back. And she said the feeling that she got was it wasn't supposed to be seen, and there was a glitch somehow that caused it to decloak, and then it cloaked back.
Wow.
So, but she described it as being a shiny object, and almost, she said it almost looked like it had rivets in it, like some kind of design
Gosh.
pattern on it, like rivets or something like that. Which that's not what the classic UFO shape is that I've heard of. So
All
it was
smooth
that some
and
kind of
nothing.
doo-wop, all smooth,
Almost.
yeah, like you're saying.
Yeah. Hmm.
I wonder if that was something military with the rivets. If that's what it possibly was, if it did have rivets in it, I would suggest man-made object. And we don't know what kind of light bending technology they have that can cloak objects. I'm sure that they're far in advance of what our technology is. But they say that the military or the government's 300 years in advance of technology of what we see. So who knows? Who knows what they have up there?
It's a pretty big step there.
Wasn't that interesting? Where the guy, his tuberculosis scars had disappeared, and he had a
Yes.
lot of vitamins and minerals in his blood that was greater than what it normally would have been. That would suggest to me that that pill that he took was still in his system. How about you?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
And
He had
did
to
you
be
like?
he had to be happy about that somewhat, right? I would be.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You
And to
know,
make it back
um,
safely.
where it said that the elk was froze and then he was froze. It's almost like they stopped time, or you know what I'm saying? Like they froze time, stepped out, did whatever they were able to do, whatever they were doing, and then put him in the craft and the elk, and then take off.
Yeah, because you
Isn't that
mentioned the
isn't that
yeah, yes, because he said that he felt panicked, but he could still see what was going on. But You know, how are we, like you said, how are we going to all fit in this room, like he said, and then
Hmm.
yeah, like they stopped time. That's amazing. Wow.
You know, I had I know it was a dream, but I had a dream that a craft came down out in our front yard, and I got on board the craft, and this door opened. It looked like it was this door looked like it was, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet thick, and it was gray metallic, and it looked like it was 3 or 4 feet thick. But it looked like it would once the door closed, it would seal, if that makes sense, like have a tight seal to it, like it was almost molded to the craft. And when I got inside of the craft, there were these beings that were in there that had grayish green skin. They looked as human. They looked humanoid like us, like features and everything. The only feature that was different about them was that their nose were more of a just a V shape. It was just a V shaped slit instead of like nostrils, and how we have the cartilage in our nose comes down. Theirs was just flat with a V, like a V shape, but they had lips like we had, and they had their hair was tight to their head, like it was I don't know, it was just I don't it was curly, like the hair was curly, but it was really tight, like in tight. I don't know how to describe it.
Kind of like slick and sleek.
Um, Maybe, yeah, but it was a gray. Like the hair on this one was like a grayish green looking color. But what I thought was weird about the whole thing was the craft itself looked like it wasn't no bigger than a, I don't know, maybe like a SUV. And then when that door opened up and went inside, it didn't look like that at all on the inside. What it looked like was like it looked like a big lab. Like to the left there was a door and it had a lab in it, and I could see people in there working with lab equipment. And then to the right, I could see like the console where they were flying this craft, and they were sitting behind these look like computer screen type things, and they communicated like telepathically, but I don't remember them saying anything to me other than what I communicated with them, a warning about for them to be careful with flying over Chernobyl, or not Chernobyl, but Fukushima, because of the radiation that is being released out of that area over there. But it was just a dream. But who knows? Who knows
Very,
what?
very, very, one of those very vivid dreams, sounds like.
Yeah, and it was in color. Like I said, it was in color, and it was different. These encounters are interesting, and I know that they're not probably in the 411 books, but they really lead you to believe or think that uh, there's something out there in these national forests and these places that are coming and taking people.
At least a realm of possibility, right?
Absolutely. And that could be the way that these are described. These people got lucky; they were brought back and returned. But some of those people in the missing 411 that have never been found, they could been part of a program like this where these things came, took them to use them for breeding purposes, or who knows what they're using them for.
Hmm.
But it's more proof that there is a bizarre, strange, mysterious world out there that we have no clue of what it is. And I think it's very interesting. I know we're probably never going to find the true answer to it, but hey, we can at least try, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. And for some reason, why are, these, it's all a connection. These woods are targeted for a reason, and maybe they're already seeing these people, and like that first one in oh, the gentleman in 1964, um
Cisco Grove.
Cisco Grove, yes. Um it just makes you wonder that, these, if they were already kind of monitoring, and was like, oh, well, this gentleman got missing from his buddies, let's take him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
As
they
opposed to just going to a whole city. It's easier. Oh, okay, these guys are in the forest, let's kind of keep it so If the
Hmm.
woods are always creepy as it is, and even right here behind my house, even though I'm in the city, they're a big huge wood line behind me, and even I've witnessed some scary things, and I just can't imagine like a national forest or going camping and something like that. That would just step up the notches there for me.
Have you ever looked on Google Earth and looked at your wood line and see how where that connects to and uh, where it goes?
I ha- I
Like the
have I have, but not haven't I haven't really studied it that much, Lee. No, I just did when I was getting the dogman like creatures in my photos, and I heard about the limestone theory, and I wanted to look that up, and boom, it's of course it's all through here. But the wood line I'm talking about, it probably stretches for mm, 3.5 miles, and then and then this creek goes towards the Trinity River, and then there's like places that are not forest, and then there's another wood line, and then it's flat land, and there's another wood line, stuff like that, and then into the country.
have you researched if there were any mysteries in the Trinity River? Like if they had any cryptid sightings around the Trinity River, or if anything like that? And is there any legend or Native American legends or anything like that associated with the Trinity River?
No, there is not, but there's a lake about the only legend that we have here. There's a lake about 15 minutes from here, and that the yes the Trinity runs into this lake as well. There was a goat man sighting in the 60s. They called the Lake Worth monster, and that's the only one that we have. But I would like to do some more digging myself and to see what else is around this, possibly around this Trinity River and the woods behind me.
Now, how wide is the woods behind you?
mm, it's not very dense at all. It's how wide? If I had to guess, mm, so the wood line on both sides follows the creek, and you know, it stays pretty much with the creek pretty far, but not very wide at all. Nothing like your neck of the woods, I'm sure.
Well, that's interesting. You have a lot of stuff that you get pictures of, and what kind of weird encounters have you had, David? Have you had any weird noises, any weird feelings, or anything around the?
As far as like noises, no, but I've heard critters in the middle of the night getting like mauled, and then you hear some yelps and cries and in the woods and stuff like that, and I'll go out there and listen. But during the day, when I've gotten pictures, there's been a couple times where I get the feeling of the classic feeling of dread you always hear, but you and I have both talked about anxiety. It's almost like it's just it's like hitting a brick wall, and you instantly get a message like go home, and not to basically turn around and go home. You're in the wrong place. Leave us alone. It's time to go. And I always obey that message. It's happened to me. It's happened to me maybe 2 or 3 times in about a 2-year span.
Oh wow,
hmm Which
that's
isn't that much.
interesting.
Which isn't that much, but to have it happen during the day is just bizarre and weird because I'm not afraid of anything, but whenever I get some kind of gut feeling like that, I'm not gonna ignore it. I even tried to at one time and keep going, and the feeling just stays, and you know, and just nothing to no reason to keep exploring. So I'll say, you know what, y'all, okay, I'm out. Very
Oh wow.
understandable. Enough pictures for today.
That
And I don't,
it,
I
it
don't, I don't
happens
mean to
when
laugh about it because there's people out there that have had much worse, and um, I only laugh about it because it's, you know, the intuition thing is very key and important, and I always try to follow that in whatever I'm doing.
right. and it doesn't hurt to do that.
Have you had the feeling of that feeling of dread or anything out hunting?
The only time I ever really had a feeling like that, like I wasn't supposed to be there or around, I would always go for a walk. We had a little Chihuahua. His name was Pee Wee. He was my buddy, and I'd take him for a walk every now and then. And where we lived out, there was probably, I don't know, I'm going to say 1,000 acres behind us of woods, and it was all tied together. And there's some fields on the back sides of it and different things, but I would take him back there, and we'd just skirt the edges of it, or we'd go inside the woods a little bit and walk around because it was real pretty back in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we started up the hill one day and got to the edge of the woods, and this overwhelming smell of death come out of the woods. Like, it was overwhelming, like it just permeated the air, and it was coming straight to me. And I stopped immediately when I smelt that smell, and I thought, I'm backing out of here. I am not going in there. And I just had this creepy feeling like there was something very, very bad, and just that feeling of dread was there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I backed out, and I didn't go back in there for a while. I hunted in there. I hunted in there before. I like got turkey and I got a deer and stuff out of there. But my friend Bud that I used to live with in that area, he showed me a place we'd drive when I would take him to town. He would show me this field just down the road from there. It was just actually over the hill from where we were at, where I had that smell and feeling of dread. And I would go in the woods no matter what, because I loved to go into the woods and walk around. Nothing really ever shook me or I got scared or anything. But that day that bothered me, that whatever that was, that smell was more than just something that had died up in there. And I could sense it, and I wanted to get it out away from there and go on back home.
Wow. So
But
you had the feeling. You had the feeling
mm-hmm,
with the odor. That's interesting.
mm-hmm, yeah. I knew that whatever was in there, I shouldn't be encountering it. I didn't want to mess with it. I don't know what it was. I just knew that I didn't need to be there. And that's the feeling that I got. Like, you don't need to be here. It's almost like you're trespassing on their territory. You know what I mean? I don't know if it was a
Yes.
cryptid or what it was, but basically I had this overwhelming feeling that you are about to come across something that you aren't going to want to mess with.
Yeah, it's almost
And
like you
so,
get an instant message of in your
mhm,
brain like you are
yeah.
trespassing.
So I listened to my instinct and I got out of there. But my friend Bud told me a story about he used to run heavy equipment, and that he would bulldoze, um, bulldoze brush off for farmers, or clear creeks out or whatever. And he was showing me this area where he'd went in and he had cleared this area out. And he told me that this wolf-like creature thing come out along the edge of the wood lines and was watching him on the his piece of machinery that he was on, a bulldozer. And he said the hair stood up on the back of his neck, and he said the only thing he had was a pocket knife, and he reached in and grabbed his pocket knife, like, he knew that it probably wasn't going to do any good. But he said, and this man had been in battles in Vietnam, and I'm not scared of much of anything at all.
Yeah.
But whatever this creature was that come out, he said it shook him to the core. And he said, I never feared for my life.
Until that moment.
All that thing, yes.
Wow.
And he, like I said, he'd been in battles in Vietnam and stuff, and in bad situations. So whatever it was must have been really something extraordinary to really bother him. He knew he knew that whatever that thing was, it could take him at a second. So, but that wasn't far from where we lived. There's these big ditches that intersect, and like they were old they were old canals where they would, when they cleared out some of the trees, they would fill them up with water, and that's how they would move those logs from point A to point B. They would, move the logs down the canal systems. And those canals are still there, and they go through the farmers' fields, and they use them as drainage ditches now. They call them state ditches and stuff, but they interconnect. And I always thought that was a place where if anything at all could move, you wouldn't see it because it'd be down inside of it and it could move without being detected. And those come right out of the hills, like hills and the hollers along the river bottoms. They all kind of lead towards the river bottoms. And there were times when I hunted down along the rivers that I would go in at night, or not at night, but in the morning when it was still dark. And I remember one time specifically, I had something walking around me that I don't know what it was, but it circled me. It could have been coyote or anything, but I would listen to it with the lights. I didn't go in with the light a lot of times, and it circled around me and just stayed out just far enough to where if I turned the light on, I couldn't catch it. And I often wondered what that was. I didn't smell any smells or hear anything grunting or, anything crazy like that. It was just footsteps walking around me. And that was on the back side of the area where I saw the whatever it was chasing the deer through the woods, knocking the trees down. So that was just on the back side of that.
Yeah, that sounded terrifying.
Yeah,
to have to see trees just falling over, and behind a whole bunch of deer that just run out during the day. You were very close to something. You guys were.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, that area down there just is a creepy along that river. I love it. It's I love going down that river because it's mysterious. It's just like a lot of woods, a lot of it's just awesome. I just love going down that river. It's something. I'll tell you a story about a UFO. I'll share with you that my aunt told me about. She was going to work one morning and she was coming down Greene County Hill. Now, Greene County Hills had a reputation of, we had heard coon hunters telling a story one night about they had taken their coon dogs down in there, and it runs along the river. That same river runs along that area. And that's where I would see those lights, like the UFO lights and stuff. But these particular coon hunters, their dogs encountered something down in that river bottom that shredded their dogs, like claw marks down their side, like shredded them, like they, whatever it was, got a hold of them, and the dog pulled away, and it sliced their sides open. And they could hear them down in there getting tore up, but the dogs made it out, but they got all kinds of tore up. And a lot of those people wouldn't go down in there and hunt in them river bottoms anymore after that. But in that particular area, my aunt was going to work one morning, and she was coming down Greene County Hill. And when you come down to the bottom, off to the right-hand side, there would be, there's a big field. And the field was right next to the river. And this one morning she was going to work. She comes down the bottom of the hill, and out in the field to the right is what she thinks is a plane crash. And there's lights from one end. Whatever this thing was so big that the lights were from one end of the field all the way to the other. And so she got to work and was asking anybody if they knew anything about the plane crash that was down by Greene County Hill. And they said, no, there's been no reports of a plane crash or anything. And she went back, and then, when she headed home and it was daylight and there was nothing there, and other people had seen it with her and thought the same thing. So that's another UFO sighting that they had. And that was the area where I would see the orange lights that would appear, and
that's interesting. Where you saw the sun, the one that looked like the suns.
Yes, and that area is in that direction is where I would see those. And that about I don't know, maybe about a half a mile or so up the road from that is where I had my encounter with the eyes in the woods, or whatever that was lit up. The eyes lit up. So that's kind of an interesting thing, you know.
Yeah. And you have a national forest not too far from you, right?
Uh, I would say it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. It's the Hoosier National Forest we have over there. It takes us about an hour and 20 minutes to get to Bloomington. So it's be southeast of Bloomington. And that's where the Hoosier National Forest starts, kind of butts up next to the Monroe Reservoir there. And there's been sightings of Bigfoot there. And I'm sure there's probably been UFO sightings there. I can't really think of any offhand, but I'm sure there has been.
Yeah, I think you had said to me a few days ago someone had saw like the wolf-like creature too.
That would have been down around the Bedford area, and there's a boat ramp um, that you can get on Lake Monroe. Lake Monroe goes for long ways. I don't know how many miles it goes, but it's one of those lakes that it's like miles long. But there was a campground there on that one side. I saw the exit for it today, and I think it said Fairfax or something like that. I'll have to do some research. There's a video where these people saw an upright walking dog-headed creature, like right at the gate, like where this campground is at. So if I come across that video, I'll post it on our website.
Awesome.
These things are out there. I worked with some people. They had had a Bigfoot encounter down around Lake Monroe. There's been been news. People have done news reports on seeing Bigfoot down there. One of them was a Bigfoot that came up in these people's backyard and was looking at the deer decoy they had, that, like those deer targets that they look like a deer, you can shoot your bow into them.
Mm-hmm.
And it came up over the bank and looked at the deer target like it was going to take it, like it was
Wow.
like it thought it was a real deer, and that scared these two guys that were out. I don't know if they were shooting their bow or doing whatever, but they saw it peeking up over the the hill looking at the deer. These things are down here. They're everywhere. I believe they're everywhere, and I think they move through certain areas. And I think these UFOs and stuff hit these national forests. They're looking for resources, just like the guy said they wanted the meat and the fish and this and that.
Elk and the
Especially,
fish, yeah.
Here's the thing: they would try to hit like areas that weren't very populated, very sparsely populated. They would, and that sound like that area where these people were at was pretty unpopulated, like national forests, and with the exception of the river, I'm sure there was probably houses around down there on the Gulf. But back in the '60s, and '70s, we got to remember the land was a little more wild back in. There was a few more trees and a little less populated than what it would be now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it would have
Makes
been a little
sense.
bit more remote. But I guess Pascagoula sits down there along the ocean, and we know that there's USOs that come up out of the water and take off, or vice versa, go back down into the water, and it just makes you wonder. It just makes you wonder what these things are.
Sure
There's
does.
people there's some people out there that probably have bits and pieces the answers to this, and that's the good thing about why we're all talking about it, is we're trying to put the puzzle pieces together. We can do this. We don't need
Yes.
we don't need government and people like that telling us these things don't exist, because we know they're out there. We know they exist. We don't need their opinion. When they're telling you that it's a conspiracy, it's to keep you looking in the other direction, because they don't want the truth getting out. That's just the bottom line of it.
Yep. Keeping you asleep.
Keep your head down. Yep.
We're just tired of being lied to, and just, you know, um, trying to look for the truth. So anyone listening, like I said, if it's about anything at all, you can reach me on Messenger at David from Texas. Anything at all. And
Awesome.
I forgot the phone number, Lee. I was gonna tell them that too.
Oh, it's 812-974-0305. And like I said,
Put this myself early.
I'll need to change the message, change my voice message to Hunters of the Paranormal, because recalling the encounters is going away and it's being replaced with Hunters of the Paranormal with hosts Ghost, Lee, Hunter, and the Fort Worth Phantom. We're on an equal
Awesome.
footing. We're on an equal footing of host. We're not there. There's none of this host and co-host. We're just hosts of the show. And this, as much as David's show as it is mine, and I think it's a good
I
thing we got
appreciate
going
that,
on
brother.
here.
That means a
Hey,
lot. Thank you.
no problem, David. It's I'm grateful to have you on here, and that I got to meet you, and we've put together a good show. I think we're gonna do some good things here. It's gonna take a little while to get some guests
Hey,
and stuff on there, but
yeah,
hey,
we're just a little small town. Just a little small amount of time we've already been doing this. We're already getting some people lined up, and it's gonna get better.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, we've really got some neat stuff coming up, don't we, David? Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
really want to give
Absolutely.
it out yet, but
Yeah, some good
it's
stuff for
exciting,
sure.
isn't it, David? Isn't it exciting?
Uh,
What
it's saying
and
good stuff is just not. That's not putting it well. I mean, it's amazing stuff.
yeah, and that's thanks to you, David. David did some investigating, found this certain person that we're talking about, and when it's just going to blow you away, what this guy has to say. It's something else. But we're not going to give any secrets away yet. We're saving that one. David, on one of the 411 cases, I'm not sure what the name of the case is, but the little boy survived and they found him. And then he described being taken to a cave where there were people that he described as being in suspended animation, and there were old guns and old equipment. Do you know what I'm talking about, David? That part of the
No,
411?
no, that one doesn't ring a bell to me. No, sir.
His grandmother, they'd been camping out with his grandmother. His grandmother had a place on the back of her neck or something where she had um like an injection, she thought, and she got knocked out or something. And this being or whatever that appeared to this little boy that took him in the cave appeared to look like his grandmother. But then when he was in the cave, this being that looked like his grandmother had a glow, like a glow to her or something like that. And he thought that she was a robot, that it wasn't
Wow.
really his grandmother, that she was a robot. But it tried to get this little boy to basically defecate on a piece of a sticky paper or whatever. And he wouldn't do it. And it basically took him back out of the cave, and he got back with his parents or however they found him. I don't know who found him or how that went, but
Wow. That
that
is so
almost,
bizarre.
yeah, it is bizarre. It's like they were going to test his
Do
DNA
some kind of
yeah,
testing for sure.
yeah, some kind of a testing. And that's another thing. All these cases, it's almost like these people are being abducted specifically for testing. Like, are they checking for the fastest and the best of the species? You know what I'm saying? The best genetics, basically, that they can get.
The best of the best.
Yes.
Bring up a good
And
point there.
a lot of the people that come up missing, it seems like in the missing 411 and different things like that, is they have a high IQ. Like they're doctors, or you know what I'm saying, mathematicians or doctors. And how valuable would that be if you came in and captured somebody like that to use for your program to harness what skills they have.
Exactly. You bring up a very good point there.
Oh yeah. Do you have anything you want to add to any of this, David? Or
No, they were all very interesting. I know that, and I had heard of all of them except for the second one.
also one or Cisco Grove?
No, the also one. But I still, man, you have so much knowledge on these things, and I'm so thankful because, I have that other name for you, the jeweler, because you always have these gems of videos. I mean, it's
Um,
awesome and stuff that I've never even heard of because this kind of stuff fascinates me, man. And it's we're like you said, we're gonna try our darndest to put the pieces of the puzzle together and also help people. And
mhm.
like I said, people out there, I know even if you're scared and want to talk about whatever, there's no judgment, nothing at all. Message me on Messenger, David from Texas, and let uh let us know what's going on. No
Yeah,
judgment at all.
we'd like to talk to you about it.
Absolutely. Just throwing
Um,
that out there.
David, something that I want to mention again about the that also one deal was how his truck ended up in an area that was inaccessible. How
Yeah,
did
I wanted to ask you what you thought maybe happened there.
I just wonder if maybe I don't know if his vehicle was picked up by a craft and moved. And oh,
Maybe the vehicle was already in the middle of the road and somebody just happened to stumble on it and oh okay, I'll pull this to the side up here a little bit.
well, he said that that also one was fascinated by his gun. Remember, he said he was fascinated by it.
Yeah.
Well, what if he was fascinated with his vehicle? And another thing, it kind of comes to me is, what if they were when they were going to take him, they were going to take his vehicle so that there was going to be no trace left of him behind. They would have never find his vehicle. They'd never find him or his vehicle.
So like almost like they tried it and they
Like
had
they
a
were
little bit
trying to
of
take
success
him.
moving it, but couldn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got you
like they
there.
took it with them, but then because it sounds like they were covering up everything, they were going to cover it all up. But when they found out they couldn't use him, they had to bring it back, and so maybe they wasn't able to get it back in the same location. Maybe there was a car going by, or somebody was seeing them coming in, or maybe they was detected by military radar or satellite or whatever, and they had to drop it an area like that wasn't accessible, and really wouldn't even be feasible to that. I want to know. I would like to know where that area was and what it looked like where the vehicle was put, because when it says inaccessible, it almost makes me think like it was dropped in the middle of the forest somewhere, and they had to cut their way out. They had to basically make a road to get in to get it out. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Yeah, it does.
The
Oh,
Yeah, he got lucky there, didn't he?
he sure did. I'm lucky about a lot of things.
Yep.
I just
I
can't imagine the what these poor people had to go through. It's just terrifying to think about.
Absolutely. Well, David, do you want to cut this off and we'll call it a night tonight, and uh, we'll have something good for him the next time we come on. What do you say, David?
Oh yeah,
We
oh
we
yeah.
just keep
We got stuff lined up and they're coming. Just be patient with
yeah,
us on that and
we got
they're.
guest speakers coming.
Hmm.
That's going to be awesome. We're going to get some insight and some insider knowledge of some things that is going to blow people's mind.
Absolutely.
Hopefully this was some UFO stories that people had never heard of before, and it shows the similarities and things. And I don't know. I'm not an expert by any means. I don't know, diddly, but I
None of us are. That's one of
yeah.
our popular sayings. You know that if anybody says they are in this kind of stuff, that It's
Yeah.
just not. I mean, no
We're-
way.
You know, it's a work in progress. We're learning. I never want to stop learning. I want to always keep researching and trying to find different things and comparing
bro.
notes. And because one of these days we're going to come up with some things that we're going to figure some things out. I think we
Mhm.
will.
And you're very good at intuition, and you're also very good at putting pieces of the puzzle together. I can already tell on theories and stuff like that. It's just amazing how you think, and we're blessed to have you.
Well, I appreciate that, David. You do a good job getting speakers and getting people to lined up for our show. You do a really good job, David. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here along this journey with me.
Thank you, buddy. It means a lot. Thank you.
No problem. Do you want to give out any shout outs tonight? Like let's give one out to Steve Istall and How to Hunt and
Absolutely.
who else would
He's
you like to?
the big time truth seeker there. You can't help but like that guy.
Oh yeah, I'd like to thank him. I'd like to thank Vic Cundiff, and I'd like to thank David Polides and all those guys, because without them, they've been an inspiration to me to do this stuff, to talk about things that I've seen, and I would have never told anybody these stories other than friends or family that I could trust. But because these guys are coming forward and they're revealing the stuff that they've seen, and we know that they're out there. There's these things are they're real, and I don't know what world they're from or what technology these things are, or if they're part of a secret space program, but they're physical. These beings are physical. They're out there, and it's been covered up way too long, and too many people have been hushed up by ridicule and judgment. But it's a reality. I mean, I have no reason to lie about it, and I'm sure that the majority of these people are not lying about it. Who else we give a
shout out? Shout out Old Bear Den. Shout out Tom Cardos, North Carolina Cryptid Project. Shout out Paul Chafin and Kirk Stokes, Kentucky Dogman Project. Huge inspirations for me. And shout out Chris Cyrus, Beyond Fringe. We got to speak with him, and he even said he would come on the show as well. And then vice versa or whatever. So that's another. Chris has always been awesome to me, and shout out to him as well.
That's awesome, David. I'd like to give a shout out to the people out there that have remained quiet and don't want to come forward and talk about this. It took an inspiration of these other people to get me to come out and start talking about it. And don't be afraid to tell your story, because it doesn't matter if they ridicule us. We know the truth.
That's what they want. That's what they
want. They don't want people to speak, because once the pieces of the puzzle come together, then the picture is will be made, and we'll see the truth.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, David, are we ready to call it a night and call her good?
Hey, I could keep doing this all night, but yeah, let's do it till next time.
All righty. Till next time, everybody. Have a good night, and enjoy your day, and keep it positive. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Zulu War Chant. That's how we're signing. Yeah, this is how we're signing off tonight. They're standing up in South Africa. They're not going to take any of this crazy stuff going on anymore. God bless the Zulu.
Yes, God bless. I would be right there with them, brother.
Oh yeah, I love it. Good night, everybody.